Please be seated if you're not already for the reading, which comes from Exodus chapter 33. It's on page 73 on your Bibles. It's also in very tiny print in the audio service, because it's quite a long reading that Sam's going to preach on. I'm going to read chapter 33. Sam reads part of 34, and then talk to us about it. So page 73 in the Church Bibles, Exodus 33. This is all about Moses. We'll find out about mediators later. But in the middle of this chapter, there's like a story within a story about the tent of meeting, so that'll help me concentrate. The Lord said to Moses, "Depart, go up from here, you and the people whom you have brought up out of the land of Egypt, to the land of which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, to your offspring I will give it. I will send an angel before you, and I will drive out the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Go up to a land flowing with milk and honey. But I will not go up among you, lest I consume you on the way, for you are a stiff-necked people." When the people heard this disastrous word, they mourned, and no one put on his ornaments. For the Lord had said to Moses, "Say to the people of Israel, you are a stiff-necked people. If for a single moment I should go up among you, I would consume you. So now take off your ornaments, that I may know what to do with you." Therefore the people of Israel stripped themselves of their ornaments from Mount Horeb onwards. Now Moses used to take the tent and pitch it outside the camp, far off from the camp, and he called it the tent of meeting. And everyone who sought the Lord would go out to the tent of meeting, which is outside the camp. Whenever Moses went out to the tent, all the people would rise up, and each would stand at his tent door and watch Moses until he had gone into the tent. When Moses entered the tent, the pillar of cloud would descend and stand at the entrance of the tent, and the Lord would speak with Moses. And when all the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, all the people would rise up and worship, each at his tent door. Thus the Lord used to speak to Moses face to face, as a man speaks to his friend. When Moses turned again into the camp, his assistant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, would not depart from the tent. Moses said to the Lord, "See, you say to me, bring up this people, but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. Yet you have said, I know you by name, and you have also found favor in my sight. Now therefore, if I have found favor in your sight, please show me now your ways, that I may know you in order to find favor in your sight. Consider too that this nation is your people." And he said, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." And he said to him, "If your presence will not go with me, do not bring us up from here. For how shall it be known that I have found favor in your sight, I and your people? Is it not in your going with us so that we are distinct, I and your people, from every other people on the face of the earth?" And the Lord said to Moses, "This very thing that you have spoken I will do, for you have found favor in my sight, and I know you by name." Moses said, "Please show me your glory." And he said, "I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim before you my name, the Lord, and I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. But," he said, "you cannot see my face, for man shall not see me and live." And the Lord said, "Behold, there's a place by me where you shall stand on the rock, and while my glory passes by, I will put you in a cleft of the rock. I will cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will take away my hand, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen."
Good morning. I'm going to carry reading there from verse 1 of chapter 34. The Lord said to Moses, "Cut for yourself 2 tablets of stone like the first, and I will write on the tablets the words that were on the first tablets, which you broke. Be ready by the morning, and come up in the morning to Mount Sinai, and present yourself there to me on the top of the mountain. No one shall come up with you, and let no one be seen throughout all the mountain. Let no flocks or herds graze opposite that mountain. So Moses cut 2 tablets of stone like the first, and he rose early in the morning and went up on Mount Sinai as the Lord had commanded him, and took in his hand the 2 tablets of stone. The Lord descended in the cloud and stood with him there and proclaimed the name of the Lord. The Lord passed before him and proclaimed, the Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, keeping steadfast love for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, but who will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children and the children's children to the 3rd and 4th generation. And Moses quickly bowed his head toward the earth and worshipped. And he said, if I have now found favor in your sight, O Lord, please let the Lord go in the midst of us. For it is a stiff-necked people, and pardon our iniquity and our sin, and take us for your inheritance. Well, good morning. Nice to be with you this morning, and particularly if you're new here today, it's great to see some faces that I don't recognise. My name's Sam. I'm a member of the church here at Grace Church. I served on the staff team for a while, and now I work in software engineering. A few weeks ago now, Jono gave us a kind of one-off talk in Exodus while the Andrews, our senior pastors, were away. So I thought, why don't we kind of continue our series in one-off talks in Exodus today? It's a book we've been looking at as a church over the last year or so. You'll notice on your service sheets, we're not meeting midweek in July, but throughout the rest of the year, we study a book of the Bible together, and sometimes multiple books. And this year, it's been the book of Exodus. And for me, honestly, it has been a real highlight of the year, actually, going through it together and with other Christians. So I highly recommend getting involved if you haven't already. And you may know this, Exodus is a story about rescue, right? Rescue from slavery, rescue from Egypt, rescue from a concentration camp, an unhinged, power-hungry dictator. A tremendous story of rescue. And you probably already know that. You only have to have seen Prince of Egypt, which actually I haven't, astonishingly. And you know that. It's also a huge theme in the Bible, isn't it? God rescuing his people from Egypt. But what many people don't know is that Exodus is a book of 2 rescues. Or I put there on the handout, a tale of 2 rescues. Get a bit of a Charles Dickens reference in there. And the first half of Exodus, it deals with the rescue from external enemies, right? So rescue from Egypt, rescue from Pharaoh, how to get Israel out of Egypt. But the second half of the book, the larger portion, and the bigger half, is a rescue from the internal enemy. Or as it's been nicely put by others, how to get Egypt out of Israel. A tale of 2 rescues. And today our passage, it marks a real turning point in the book. And think about it, the people in this chapter, they had everything. And they had been rescued personally by God, saved out of the hands of an evil ruler, walked through divided waters, watched their oppressors sink into the waves around them, and brought to the mountain by God himself, and received instruction on how he would dwell in their midst. It's the relationship they were made for. It was within their reach. An act of pure grace. They'd been given everything. But then they had thrown it back in God's face. They had fashioned a fake God out of gold and held a worship ceremony in direct rebellion against the true God who had saved them. And our verses today, they kick off as Israel, they look to their future. Look with me at verse 1. The Lord said to Moses, depart, go up from here, you and the people whom you've brought out of Egypt, down of Egypt, to the land which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, to your offspring I'll give it. I will send an angel before you, and I will drive out the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Go up to a land flowing with milk and honey, but I will not go up among you, lest I consume you on the way, for you are a stiff-necked people. When the people heard this disastrous word, they mourned, and no one put on his ornaments. And at first you might be thinking, hang on a second, what is so disastrous about that, right? God promises to bring them safely out of Egypt, out of the land, into the land safely. He's going to drive out all their enemies for them. He's going to give them everything that he promised. What is so disastrous about that? Well, of course, the answer is in verse 3. And God is not going to go with them. We're going to see these chapters today. They show us three things. They're on your handout if you'd like to follow along. It would be helpful for you. And the first thing they show us is what we have lost. It is a disaster to be separate from God. And the reality is, it doesn't matter how good their situation is, right? How safe they are in the land, how secure, how comfortable, how financially stable it's going to be. And if God is not with them, it is worth nothing. And they know this, don't they, right? Their response, it's not to say, well, at least we've got the land, right? And at least we're going to be safe. At least we've got this lovely land of milk and honey to look forward to. No, their response, verse 4, is to mourn the death of a relationship that was so precious. I think the modern secularism of our age kind of has it exactly the wrong way around here. Okay, so we don't have God anymore, and he's gone, and we figured that out. He doesn't exist. But you know what? We have iPads, we have other things, we have comforts, we have mortgages, we have the comforts of a modern, godless world. Actually, the important things like comfort and security, well, they're the things that we can't live without. At least we have those. Even if it's a little bit sad and nostalgic that we kind of lost God in the 20th century. But if we had any idea how much of a disaster it was to lose the only real thing in this world worth having, if we had any idea how appalling our rebellion, how low we had sunk as a humanity, well, our only response would be to mourn like they did. And sadly, we're moving house next month. I'll get quite emotional if I talk about it. It feels too long, but we're moving house at the end of August. It's a very sad time, but it's also an exciting time, right? I booked my removal van, and all things are sort of happening. And I want you to imagine for a second that on the day of the move, my wife says to me, she turns and says, Sam, you know what, everything is in order now. We've got the removal van, the boxes are packed, and the furniture's being moved. We have the house keys, we have the car. But you know what, Sam? Our marriage is over. I'm not coming with you. The relationship's over, Sam. Well, it would be worth nothing, would it? It wouldn't matter how nicely arranged the furniture was on the other end. It'd be worthless. It wouldn't matter how safely I arrived. It would be a disaster. And if my marriage was over on the day of our move, I would spend the journey to Worcestershire mourning what I had lost. And some of you know that Grace Church is looking for a new building, perhaps sometime in the future, it will give us all kinds of potentially great opportunities to serve the Greenwich area, and there's been all kinds of good progress in that area. But I want us to imagine that God gives us everything we want, right? Car parking space, a beautiful building, security, accessibility, visibility in Greenwich, and the whole show. But then he says, verse 3, I'm not coming with you. Well, it would be worth nothing, wouldn't it? If we don't have God with us, it is a disaster. It doesn't matter how many other things we have. And the people in this passage, they know this. Verse 4, when they heard this disastrous word, they mourned. But just at the moment when it looks like there is absolutely no hope left, and Philip mentioned this as he introduced the reading, and we are introduced in verse 7 to this relationship. And notice that the genre changes, doesn't it? The author he presses pause on the narrative and brings our attention to something else. Verse 7. Now, Moses used to take the tent and pitch it outside the camp, Far off from the camp, he called it the tent of meeting, and everyone who sought the Lord would go out to the tent of meeting, which was outside the camp. Whenever Moses went out to the tent, all the people would rise up, and each would stand at his tent door and watch Moses until he had gone into the tent. When Moses entered the tent, the pillar of the cloud would descend and stand at the entrance of the tent, and the Lord would speak with Moses. And when all the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, all the people would rise up and worship, each at his tent door. Thus the Lord used to speak to Moses face to face, as a man speaks to his friend. And you see, maybe there is hope. Just maybe there is a way back to God. And it has something to do with this man, Moses. And these chapters, they show us, firstly, what we have lost, but they also show us what we need. Somebody like Moses to bring us back to God. And Moses, he's already tried beforehand, actually, to intercede for the people back a chapter earlier. But this time, his request is a little different. Moses, beforehand, he appealed to God on the basis of his character, his promises, and his reputation. But this time, the prayer is very different. And I wonder if you noticed how centered around Moses the prayer was. And the conversation they have, 6 times in the conversation, Moses is spoken about as finding favor in God's sight. I wonder if you noticed that. Verse 12, yet you have said, Moses saying to God, I know you by name, and you have also found favor in my sight. Now therefore, if I have found favor in your sight, please show me now your ways, that I may know you, in order to find favor in your sight. And then verse 16, for how shall it be known that I have found favor in your sight, I and your people? And the prayer this time is that just maybe God will go with them. And not because they deserve it, but because Moses does. I mean, he seems to be about as present with Moses as you can be. And in Moses' face, it literally shone. I mean, I can't even picture that. So I have no idea what that would look like. But if there is any hope for God's people here, it's that Moses finds favor with God. And astonishingly, verse 17, God agrees. Look with me at verse 17. And the Lord said to Moses, this very thing you have spoken, I will do. For I am a God who keeps his promises? No. For you have said you're sorry really well, and you're really repentant? No. Because, verse 17, you, Moses, have found favor in my sight, and I know you by name. You see, what the people need more than anything is someone who knows God like a friend, and somebody like Moses. We can't just presume that God is going to forgive for no reason. I mean, why should he? We sometimes think it's God's job to forgive us, right? That's the famous Heinrich Heine quote, God will forgive me, that is his job. But why? And why should he? As if saying sorry is enough. I mean, has that changed anything? And for a people that are this far fallen, well, there really is no way back to God. Unless someone like Moses, who finds favor with him, would intercede for them. And what these people need is somebody like Moses. And truly, the wonderful thing about the book of Exodus is that it doesn't just show us what we are like, what we've lost, and being separated from God. It doesn't even just show us what we need, a rescuer like Moses who will deliver us. But, and the book of Exodus, it shows us, thirdly, what we have. A gracious God who will provide somebody like that for us. And verse 34 and verse 1, the Lord said to Moses, cut for yourself 2 tablets of stone like the first, and I will write on the tablets the words that were on the first tablets, which you broke. Be ready by the morning, and come up in the morning to Mount Sinai, and present yourself there to me on top of the mountain. No one shall come up with you, and let no one be seen throughout all the mountain. Let no flocks or herds graze opposite that mountain. So Moses cut 2 tablets of stone like the first, and he rose early in the morning, went up on Mount Sinai as the Lord commanded him, and took in his hand 2 tablets of stone. The Lord descended in the cloud and stood with him there and proclaimed the name of the Lord. The Lord passed before him and proclaimed, the Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, keeping steadfast love for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, but who will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers and the children, and the children's children to the third and fourth generation. And verses 4 to 7 of chapter 34, they are some of the most famous verses in the Bible. And in many ways, they're quite climactic in the whole of the book of Exodus, actually. The Lord's name is an enormous theme in the rest of the book. And there's a case to be made, actually, that the central theme of the book of Exodus is God revealing his name, and the name of the Lord. It comes up all over the book. The Lord revealing himself to Moses at the burning bush, the Lord, as he plans to rescue them. The Lord who rescues, the Lord who keeps his promises, the Lord who triumphs over his enemies. The Lord is my strength and my song, and the Lord is my banner. And the name of the Lord, it is scattered across the whole book. But if there is one thing that God wants you to know about him, the most godlike thing you can know about God is that when his people defiantly threw it back in his face, when they squandered everything, when they fashioned a fake God out of metal and spat in his face, when they did that, he forgave them. He forgave them. And that is what God most wants you to know about his name. He's the God who is compassionate, forgiving, and slow to anger. We said, didn't we, it's not God's job to forgive us. Of course it's not. But it is his name. It is his character. That is what he's like. That is who he is. In other words, it's not as though God is like the angry one, and then Moses has to kind of calm him down, right? Sort of convince him to forgive, right? When you think about it, Moses was a bit of a train wreck of a rescuer at the beginning of the book, right? And it took several chapters of convincing Moses to go and face Pharaoh, even though he had God on his side. He was a disaster. He was so far away from the rescuer they needed. Have you ever wondered why it was Moses' staff that God used to bring about the plagues of Egypt? You know, God could have just done it on his own, right? Why use Moses' staff? And why use Moses in that way? Well, God was preparing him. He was preparing Moses to be the rescuer that they needed, and preparing him for this moment. This cowardly Egyptian-raised boy has become the one who finds favor with the one true God. And what they need now is a God gracious enough, forgiving enough, slow enough to anger, abounding in enough steadfast love to provide somebody like that for them. And that is exactly what we need as well. I'm here in 2022 in Greenwich. In fact, the reality, I'm afraid, is that we need someone even better than Moses, and someone who can intercede permanently for his people, someone who can be an eternal high priest. And Andrew Latimer, the last few weeks, has been showing off something of the comedy in the book of Genesis. And I've enjoyed it a lot, I hope you have. And punchlines everywhere you look, right? And God's sense of humor all over the place. And well, if there was a punchline for today, it's that a few thousand years after these chapters took place, the Lord himself would descend, the one greater than Moses, who had spent an eternity with God the Father, and he himself would come down in the person of Jesus Christ and be the rescuer that we so desperately need. He stepped off his throne. He came down to a world that he knew would spit in his face. He took upon himself the appalling brokenness of our sin and rebellion, and he rose up on the third day to be our living hope. And the God of Exodus, the God of the Bible, is shockingly, unfathomably, scandalously ready to forgive. And if we just knew how desperate our situation without him was, well, we would cling to the Lord Jesus like nothing else. And he's the one we need. He's the one we've got. He's someone in the middle. I'll leave a pause and then we'll pray as it's read together.